Our speaker today is also an alumna from the Williston class of 1987, and she has spent her professional lifetime with an unmuted mic. Susan Del Percio has 37,000 followers on Twitter, so she has a big platform. Now, I got to know Susan way before she knew me, since I confess to being a slightly addicted viewer of MSNBC's Morning Joe, where she is a frequent guest and where my interest in politics and love of coffee converge. Susan came to Williston from Long Island, and in hindsight, she would probably describe herself as a fish out of water in terms of the teen culture at that time. The New England boarding school back then was quite a bit more inward-looking than it is today. So when Susan showed up sporting a rhinestone 516 lapel pin in honor of her Long Island area code, her Williston peers looked at her a little funny. Of course now, area codes appear everywhere, from Instagram bios to tattoos, so maybe, Susan, you were just ahead of your time. Susan is a businesswoman who runs her own eponymous strategy and communications company. She is a nationally recognized crisis management expert and is a political and policy maven who contributes regularly to myriad news outlets. Having consulted and worked for major political figures from both sides of the aisle, she is especially well suited to talk about the issues that you seniors will confront. I'm delighted to welcome Susan Del Percio back to Williston as the keynote speaker for the graduating class of 2021. Please join me in giving Ms. Del Percio a warm Williston welcome.
Thank you, Head of School, Mr. Hill. Wow, it is so great to be back here. I can't believe I was sitting where you are, I bet a much nicer tent, 34 years ago. So let me start off. Congratulations, class of 2021. Congratulations to the family members and the loved ones of the class of 2021. And congratulations to the Williston staff and faculty who have made Williston such a wonderful place to be, especially during these difficult times. I'm sure when you all look back to a year ago, you were wondering if you would be able to enjoy the ceremony in person, and I'm so happy we could all be here today. When I was thinking about what to say here today, I decided to go to the source. You see, I have one nephew who graduated virtually a year ago, and another one who's graduating next week. In separate conversations, they both said the same things. Don't talk about COVID. We know what we went through. Don't rehash it. Then another one said, don't talk about politics. Yeeks. That's what I do. I do crisis communication and politics. They kind of left me ham-handed. So while I was appreciative of their voice, I just wanted to I started to look at the blank screen and think, you know, I can't believe one of them thought I would talk about politics at a high school graduation. So when I started thinking about what might interest you all today, I started to have a lot of memories flood back. When I came to Williston, I was a junior. I had never even knew what boarding school was until 3 months before. The idea of boarding school was foreign to all of my friends. As a matter of fact, the only real thing they asked me is, why are your parents sending you away? They didn't understand that I actually wanted to go. Yet, when I came to Williston, it seemed like all people had were questions. Yes, there was the 516 pin, and there was the horrible Long Island accent that certainly drew attention. But I think, like all of you, they were probably just trying to figure out how would I fit into their environment. Williston is a fine community, but there is a much bigger world out there. You will come across many people that you do not like and you do not agree with, and that's okay. But what you must do to move forward is to listen to what they have to say. Because and I learned this in politics, you don't actually have to like somebody, but you do have to listen and respect their point of view. And that will lead to much more productive relationships down the road. Now, being an active listener is not as easy as it sounds. In fact, sometimes learning how to listen is because you've been embarrassed by the fact that you weren't paying attention at all. I had Mr. Shaler for English. which the faculty and some alumni will remember him. I really didn't think he liked me, especially when he threw my shoe out a window. So I must have been daydreaming or something and having my shoe flip on and off my heel, because like a jackrabbit, this man dashed across the hall, grabbed my shoe, threw it out the window in no time flat. I was horrified, especially since I couldn't get it until after class. See, I hated writing assignments, which is not a good thing in English class. But after the shoe incident, I started to pay more attention, and I started to get better at writing. Even when I made it to college, I got an A on my first essay. I was shocked. And now, thanks to a really, really good editor at NBC News, I'm a columnist there. Now, professionally, I have never seen a television host grab someone's shoe and throw it across the set. But I have seen people go down in flames because they were more concerned about what they wanted to say instead of listening to what they were being asked. As a political contributor at MSNBC, we typically get our questions, or topics rather, ahead of time. I do my research, you get some data, you spend time boiling it down into a few keywords and a few numbers that you can kind of have a little cheat sheet for. And you go on set because you're there to inform the viewers. But you know what? Sometimes things go wrong. A host goes rogue, or there's breaking news, and you have to adapt. That's part of the job. What's not part of the job is showing people how smart you think you are. What is part of the job is listening to people and providing an informed discussion. Now, often, those people who show up only wanting to say their talking points, by the way, they rarely ever get asked on again. So you can see, I put a very high premium on listening, as I hope you do. This also means listening to yourself. You know that little voice that sometimes you hear when something difficult happens, a problem or a challenge? I learned long ago to listen to that voice. Now, yes, sometimes it's mischievous, which explains lots of purchases that are hanging in my closet that have never been worn. But more often than not, when confronted with a challenge, if you listen to that voice honestly, it can help you guide you through a lot. I got the most important phone call of my career about 10 years ago. It was a booker. A booker, by the way, is someone who basically just calls you to show up on a television show. I got a call from a booker saying, could I appear on the Dylan Ratigan show? I had never been on national television before, even though I had done lots of local TV. I had always said no. The reason? Because I was scared. So I told the booker, give me an hour, I'll get back to you. I have to change some things in my schedule. Clearly a delay tactic. I hung up the phone, and I gotta tell you, I was nervous. I even started shaking, I was by myself. I quickly Googled the Dylan Ratigan show and looked at that screen and said, there is no way I can do this. There's just no way. I sat down and I started writing the pros and cons out, and the only con that came often was I was scared. And that's when I heard that voice that said, if fear is the only reason you are saying no, that is unacceptable. For some reason, I listened to that voice, I called the booker back, I said, yes, I'll go on. The next day, I get seated on the set, very fancy for me, I'd only done local things. They mic me up, they say, do you want a right earpiece or a left earpiece? Oh, no, I never wore an earpiece before. I said, right. I met the other guests, the host came on, and boom, live TV, and it was over, like that. Well, fortunately, no one else noticed how bad my leg was shaking under the table because I was beyond nervous, because they asked me back the next week, and then a few months later, it turns out that we had such good chemistry on the set, they offered me a contract, and the rest, as they say, is history. From that day forward, I've always listened to that voice. The ability to listen to it truthfully, honestly, and reflect on it has served me well. And I have never allowed fear to be the sole reason I've never taken on a challenge. I'm often asked, did you always want to be in politics and television? The answer, no and never. But when someone asks me, when did you develop an interest in politics? Like that, I know the answer, high school. You see, in 1985, I was not the only new face to the Williston community. There was a new history professor on the scene, Mr. Peter Gunn. Yeah. Now, while I enjoyed history, what really caught my attention was we were talking about politics and understanding the political spectrum. And there were two things that really stuck out with me. The first, and I do this all the time, even when I'm speaking to college students, is Mr. Gunn came in the room and he drew on the chalkboard a straight line. And he said, far left, far right. I'm taking notes. And then he said, but now look at it this way. And he drew a circle and didn't quite close the ends. And at one side it said far left and the other said far right, showing that most of us really were in the middle of the political spectrum. And yet the far left and the far right had a lot more in common than we thought. Because while they didn't agree in principles, they fell much closer in the spectrum of all of us. Now the other thing has stayed with me throughout my time is a book that he taught from. Howard Zinn, People's History of the United States. Now that book, I don't like. As a matter of fact, I still don't think I agree with a lot of it, but I still have it because it taught me to challenge the way I think. It gave me an opposition view and challenged me, and that is the thinking that has really helped me throughout my career that I hope helps you through yours. Now, trust me when I say the fact that I went to a communications college and got my master's in political communication was a total fluke. I really just wanted to go to school in Boston. But it turns out later, when you reflect, yeah, it may have been a fluke, but that foundation for my career was set here at Williston. Williston has provided you all with a very solid foundation. The foundation comes not just from what you've learned in the classroom, but from your shared experiences. In some ways, Williston has prepared you much better than those you're about to meet this fall. You understand what it is to have a roommate, what it's like to be away from home, what communal living's all about, and a shared existence. But most of all, you have learned how to handle problems and solve them on your own. This skill is an important one and will take you through much of your life and help you develop those relationships and expand your learning. However, you still will have challenges. Some will be big, some will be small. No matter what they are, embrace it. Sitting here now, many of you may think you already know what you want to do and what your life will look like. And maybe that will happen. But along the way, expect lots of bumps, sinkholes, and even a few detours along the way. And when those do pop up, as they usually do, remember, as things evolve, be flexible. Evolve with your plan. Don't be afraid to chuck it all together. This is how we grow. A few years ago, my mom said to me, do you realize you have never been technically qualified for a single job you ever had? True story. And she was right. But I never regretted accepting those challenges or even walking in blind, and even the experiences I disliked and left after a year, because they are who led up to me and having the career I've had. Expect the unexpected, as the saying goes, because no matter how much you prepare, things will go wrong. It's how you adapt that matters. It's what you learn that matters. And here's the hard truth. You will fail. At least I hope you do. I know, not inspirational, but hear me out. It is imperative that you know, that you truly understand, nobody achieves great success without failure. It's the thing that keeps us real. It motivates us. It's what makes us human. Every failure, every experience can offer us a lesson about ourselves, our path, our choices. Failing is human. What separates us is how we handle those failures, how we pick ourselves up and move forward. You are all so much more aware of the world and what is possible than I was 34 years ago, and I am so impressed with that. With that, though, you have a responsibility to expand your knowledge, to expand your awareness, and learn. Ask lots of questions, but really listen to the answers. Follow your moral code, always. Never be afraid to try because you are afraid to fail. To fail is human. To succeed in spite of those failures is what makes us remarkable. So go out there, class of 2021, and be remarkable. Congratulations.